Using the link I've provided you through the library homepage and databases, log in, enter your library user ID and your PIN, and sign on to the database. I'm going to show you where I end up, which is a page that looks like this. And this is all the DSM material that you have available to you. There's quite an extensive collection here that I suggest you browse. But for our purposes, if you scroll down to the DSM library and you select the DSM-5, you will then have full access to the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition. This book is a very inexpensive book, a couple $100 if you needed to buy it by itself. So the online database is an excellent option for us to have. If you go down to section number 2, the diagnostic criteria and codes, and select that, you will then begin to see how the DSM-5 is divided and all the diagnostic criteria and codes that are used. And so, for example, you have the neurodevelopmental disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders, bipolar and related disorders, the depressive disorders, the anxiety disorders, the obsessive compulsive and related disorders, trauma and stressor related disorders, and so on and so forth. And so we have an excellent guide here to help us learn about mental health issues. And so if we go into the first one, and in this case we'll go into anxiety disorders, which is our first week's discussion, and we scroll down, you can see how the DSM provides you with a very good description of anxiety disorders, and I would strongly encourage you using the DSM-5 and citing this source as your primary source for describing any kind of mental health issues or disorders. And it's quite extensive. And then it gets into the very specific disorders. So in this particular case, the first is the separation anxiety disorder, providing you with a full diagnostic criteria of the disorder, diagnostic features, associated features supporting diagnosis, prevalence, development or course, risk and prognostic factors, and provides us with genetic related diagnostic issues, suicide risk, functional consequences of the separation anxiety disorder, speaks to differential diagnosis, which means other disorders that might be distinguished from or disorder like, for example, separation anxiety being distinguished from a general anxiety disorder, talks about all of the differentials, and then gives you a very significant set of sources that source the information that it provides to you. All excellent resources for you. And then the DSM moves into the next anxiety disorder, and in this case selective mutism. So please do use the DSM and the DSM-5 as your primary source always, and that is how you access the DSM through the library database. Each week we will be using the DSM as a reference to our discussions, so please, the first thing you should do is get yourself comfortable with logging in, getting into the DSM, and making sure that you can look at the various disorders that are part of the Diagnostic Statistics Manual.